Alright, let's start with functions. Now, first of all, there comes the built-in functions. You already saw and used some of the built-in functions like length and sum. Okay, if I look at the Python documentation, you can see these are some of the built-in functions that are available in Python. Okay, and you have already used some of those things like this absolute, this range, okay, this type, then this chr, then directory. Okay, these are the built-in functions that are available that you can use. There are another kinds of function that we already also saw, that is called methods. We saw that a list object had certain methods that you can perform. Also, string had some different types of methods that you can perform on a string object and things like that. Now let's take a look into the user defined functions that we can actually define by ourselves. Okay, that is user defined function. Okay, now in MATLAB you also saw how to create user defined function like this way. So this function, this was a key name that we used to define a function by ourselves, and this was our output variable, and this was the function name. In name we actually gave our function a name, and this was the input variable. Inside we had the relation between the input and output, and the function actually ended with this one. Okay, the output of this function was assigned to this output variable. Okay, so this was the basic structure of our function in MATLAB. So in Python the structure is a bit different but quite similar. What you do, right, this way, we actually write this def. Okay, this def performs the same like this function. Okay, so this define, so then we write the function name, similar types of name that you used to give in MATLAB. Then inside we have the input variables. Okay, so and we in this with a colon. Okay, then the indentation comes. This is the indentation. We write our function body, we write our relationship, everything inside. As you can see, that only difference is that we are not defining the output variable here. Okay, we do that at the end using something that is called a return statement. Return this. Okay, we want to return something from this function that is ended with this return command. Okay, so I hope you got the idea. So let's take a look at our code. If we come here, last time what we did here is that we took a text. Okay, we perform the operation that we want to find the frequency of the characters in our text. Let's do that using a function, user defined function. Let's first copy it here, get a new function. So this is our text, so we run it. So now we have this variable. Okay, let's define def. So what we want to do is frequency count. Okay, so this is the name of our function. Then I provide the input variable, say for example x is the input variable name. Okay, then in the function body what I want to provide, I want to provide this. Let's copy it, let's put it here. Now one thing, so I have defined it as x, so I have to put it as x. Keep the indentation clear. Okay, so I don't need to print it. So what I want to, previously we print the outputs to see. Now we want to return the output. We want to return what, when you call this function, what our function should return. So we have to write like this way. After calling this return, so our function will return this out. This is the dictionary that our function, we want our function to return. So if I run it, so this is already been created. Now let's call our function. So this is our function already defined. Okay, defined as the name frequency count. Now we want to call our function. Let's call our function with the name frequency count. What is the input variable? I want to provide the input variable text, for example txt. If I call this, it will return this out. Okay, this is the out. Okay, so I hope you got the idea how to write a function like write user defined function by yourself. The structure is pretty much similar, and using this diff, def, define, and this return statement. Okay. Now Python actually offers much more flexibility in writing a function. Okay. Let's take a look at another example before moving on. Say simple example, say for example df, we define a new function, for example myf. Okay, a comma b comma c, then this colon. What we want to do is that I want to provide this out is equals to, I want to provide the summation a plus b plus c. Okay, I want to return out. Okay, so my function is defined. Now if I call it myf of, say for example 3 comma 9 comma minus 2, as you can see it is providing me the summation of it. Okay, now check here. When I am calling this function, I have defined my function myf with 3 input arguments a, b and c. So when I am calling my function, I have to call it with 3 arguments. If I call my function myf or with, say for example 2 arguments, it is going to generate an error, missing one required positional argument, one required. That means when I define my function with 3 arguments, to call it I have to call it with 3 arguments. Okay, the same thing was in your MATLAB as well. And if I want to, say for example, keep the flexibility that I can provide any number of arguments. Okay, if you remember in MATLAB, this was something that was like varargin. Okay, that is variable argument input. If I want to provide variable arguments like any number of argument I can provide, I have to define it in a different way. Okay, in Python it is actually quite simple. We will do something like this. Say we do something like this a with this asterisk sign in the front. It means this is a keyword argument. It means that this asterisk sign means that this a, our variable, will take a tuple. Okay, let's see it here. Let's perform this print a. Okay, let's return nothing. If you keep the return empty, okay, it will automatically return none. Now let's call my function. Let's call it with a different name. Okay, otherwise it will be matched with the same name. So now my ff, say for example 4 comma 2 comma 9 comma 7. So I am providing 4 input arguments. Now check. As you can see, when I call this function 4297, everything I have printed a. That means now my input variable a is taking variable number of arguments, and everything is inside a tuple. In MATLAB, when you call this varargin, if you remember, everything inside this varargin was inside a cell. Okay, the same thing is happening here. Instead of writing varargin, I am just writing using this asterisk sign with the variable name, and everything inside has been listed inside a tuple. Okay, instead of a cell. That's the only difference. Okay, if you are very much familiar with MATLAB, this will be very easy to compare. If not, try to learn new. Okay, so this is the way of calling our function like this way. If I want to provide variable arguments, we can do it like this way. So let's perform some operation with this. Okay, say for example, instead of just printing, okay, let's do something. For example, out is equals to, what I want to do, I want to perform all the elements up to -1. Okay, up to the last element I want to sum. This means, if you remember, -1 means this is the last element, and this one, since I am slicing it, the last element will be excluded. Okay, when I'm slicing, I want to multiply it with the last element, so I will do like this, -1. Okay, and I want to return out. Okay, let's call my ff, same thing. 4 2 9 and 7. As you can see, 4 আর 2 6 9 6 15, 7 by 15, that is 105. So my function is working properly. So I hope you got the idea. So this is the way you can actually uh, use the varching command, okay, like this way. Try to practice a little bit by yourself, okay. In the so let's move a little bit further, okay. So we saw two different ways. This is the basic way to create a write a function, okay. Yeah, we used one argument. You can also use two arguments, three arguments, also something like this, okay. If I want to use variable number of arguments, arbitrary number of arguments, we can use this asterisk sign, okay, and everything will be inside a tuple. Now let's move on. Let's move on a bit further. Say for example, I have this function, and here as we can see, what we did here is that I have one argument, one key, that is W. If you look here, I have another key, that is capital W. The difference is that when I was defining the key here, I didn't actually differentiate between these two, okay. So this W and capital W, lowercase and uppercase, are different key. So what if I want to make them same key? So I have to do something different here. But try to understand the question. What I want to do is that if the user tells me that I want to keep the I want to think of W and capital W same, then I will perform this. If the user does not tell me anything, I will keep it the same as it is. The point is, I want to provide an optional parameter that if the optional parameter is mentioned, okay, then I will perform the way I wanted to. Otherwise the default operation will be performed, okay. So I hope you got the idea. So let's do something like this. Let's come here, let's copy it, okay. So this is our frequency count 2. Now I am to provide a optional parameter. How we can do that? So let's name the optional parameter as case, but I have to provide a value, default value. Say for example false. This is the default value, okay. So what does it mean actually? The thing is that, so what I'll do, the simple way to do it is, if case is false, perform this operation, okay. That is the default operation. If case is false, I will do the way it is supposed to do. If it is true, else this else. So I will use the indentation to make it similar. Else, if case is true, that means when the case is true, when user write the case as true, what I want to do, I want to perform this operation but not considering the case. So I will do something like this. For I in x dot lower, that will convert our original x to lowercase. There will be no uppercase, and I'll perform this operation, okay. And whatever the output is, it will be shown here. So let's see, okay. So if I call our frequency count 2 with this text, okay, let's see what happens. As you can see, when I perform this text, I have already defined the case as false, so I may not mention it. It is completely fine. Now if I want to call it again, comma, what was our key? That was case. So case is equals to, if I write false, that is already given by default, so it will perform the same operation, okay. No difference. Only if I mention that the case is equals to true, okay. Now see what actually happens. As you can see, now this W is 3. Previously there was 2 W, small, lowercase and uppercase. Now I only have 1 W, because it considered both as the same thing. It is performing this lower operation, okay. I hope you got the idea. If you try to take a look at here, for example, a dot sort, when you are writing this code, key is equals to none, reverse equals to false, These are the optional parameters that was given. Okay, let's talk about it later.